Hey everybody, Keith Gary, recording with intention. Today, I feel compelled to dive into a dicey, touchy subject, analog versus digital. I find this argument to be pedantic in many ways and vastly misunderstood. So I'm just going to flow with this. Let me start with this. I've heard amazing records that were recorded all digitally. I've heard really shitty records done all analog on tape, right? And I've heard great records all done on tape, and I've heard shitty records all done on digital. So I don't think it matters. When you get down to it, I really don't think it matters. I think people don't understand the importance of performance and what happens beneath the technology. The technology is important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the microphones and the gear and the engineering expertise doesn't matter. It does, but it lies underneath the music. So what do I mean by that? When you're stepping up to record something, the first decision you make, as we've already discussed, is you listen in the room and you find your spot and treat the room. And the first decision you make is what kind of microphone. Is it a ribbon? Is it a condenser? Is it a dynamic? And you have to be able to answer the question why. You have to. Ask yourself internally why, and then have an answer. It's okay if you're wrong, because that will prove itself and you'll learn more later on. But be able to answer, at least in that moment, why you are making the decision you're making. And the answer should never be because I saw that person do it that way. Every decision you make after that has less importance. So I will make a video when I have the tools available to me to do it. But in one of the classes I taught at university, I had an acoustic guitar player and he just kept playing the same thing over and over. And we found the right spot to put a microphone. And then I put a condenser in that spot and recorded the loop. And then I put a ribbon in the same spot and recorded the loop. And then I put a dynamic in the same spot and recorded the loop. And then we went back into the control room and listened to those 3 different designs of microphones in the same spot with the same artist, with the same guitar, playing the same music. The only difference was the microphone. And they were wildly different sounds. Dynamics, condensers, and ribbons capture sound in a completely different way. So it's about knowing when to reach for which one and why. That decision changes the sound so much. So much. Now, after you make that decision, it's which condenser, which ribbon, which dynamic, okay? And that's where you get into putting 3 different dynamic microphones in the same spot and comparing those. Then put 3 different condenser microphones in the same spot and compare those. Put 3 different ribbon microphones in the same spot, compare those. The similarities between those examples versus the ones being compared against the different microphone designs, it's night and day. That's how you understand what the character of a microphone design is. What do condensers sound like? What do ribbons sound like? What do dynamics sound like? Because as soon as you're comparing dynamic against another dynamic, the changes in sound become much more subtle. And then after that, you've blind tested yourself and picked your favorite mic of the favorite design. And then you get to test, okay, put it through an API pre, put it through a Neve pre, put it through a GML, and then blind test those. That's how you come to learn these really magical combinations of which microphone specifically agrees with which pre and be able to answer why. And if you don't know why, ask, research. Send me an email. I'll give you my perspective on it, and then you test it for yourself and see how it works. So to me, those decisions the closer you get to the source, the bigger the difference that decision has on the sound. At the very end of all of that is, am I recording to Pro Tools or am I recording to tape? So if you have everything right up until the medium you're recording on, you're going to get something good. If you have a great song, a great band, you've picked the right mics, you put them in the right spot, the room is treated to what you're getting, you're running it through correct pre's, you've EQ'd them properly, you've compressed it properly, you've given everything you can with intention to the sonic capture of what you're getting. It doesn't matter if it's going to tape or Pro Tools. Sonically, it doesn't matter, right? If you have something bad and you put $50,000 of vintage microphones and pre's and tubes and run it onto pristinely calibrated tape on a Studer machine, you're just going to hear vintage character of crap. Who cares? So it really annoys me when I hear people argue this debate from a place that isn't putting performance and music first. Now, you can make a decision. I would love to make an all analog record. I would love to do it where there's no screen in front of me the entire time. You're just using ears. You're just on tape. You hear the rewind of the reel. There's something so romantic about working on tape. And to me, that's the difference. That's the difference, is the way it changes the process, right? Musicians play better when they know they're on tape because they know I can't slice and dice things up and move it around. It's like, you got to perform. So what does tape do? It makes the performance better, right? And performance is the most important thing about a sound. And I think people get confused because tape and the process of recording on tape makes the musicians perform better. They respond to the performances and they're like, oh, it must be the tape. It must be the all analog that is the special ingredient. It's not. I'm here to tell you it's not. It's the performance. It's the performance. And you can use Pro Tools like a tape machine. You can do all the front end stuff. And I do, like the word analog, I love to record in big rooms, and I love to record as much live and simultaneous as I possibly can, because there is a spontaneity that happens when you get great musicians in a great big room together and they're playing off of each other in the moment. There's something that happens that can't happen any other way in overdub mode. It just can't happen. So my favorite way to track is to go into a big room, hire heavyweight musicians that can play in any color and in any style. Or if it's a band that plays their own material, you don't need to bring in ringers, but get good musicians in a big room and get them playing together live like it's a show. But record it in a way where things are isolated enough that you can overdub if you need to. So it's the best of both worlds. If you get a magical live performance that could never ever be recreated, you've got it. If there's a bunk note and you need to punch it in, you can do that. If the singer was off and he wants to really work on the vocal and overdub, go for it. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. But I know from experience that recording simultaneous live, but with enough isolation to do studio stuff and overdubs, gets an amazing amount of material done extremely quickly. And my studio days, I like to be at the end of a day and we've recorded so much that we can't even remember what we did. We just remember that it felt great and it was really fun. And then you listen back at the end of the day, you don't even remember what you did, and it's all great. That's and the time just flies by, and you feel so productive, and everyone's just in this symbiotic vortex of swirling creative energy. And that's music to me. It doesn't matter if it's going on tape or going into Pro Tools. So This is another philosophy video. I'll call it analog versus digital. So I record in big rooms on large format consoles most of the time live. I use a lot of analog gear on the front end. I'm very particular about which microphones I use, where I put them, which pre's I choose. You know, any studio you walk into, you make a list of what they have, make sure it all works, and then you just sit down with a pen and pad, and okay, these are the mics I have, these are the pre's I have, this, and then you just put it together like a puzzle. Go in with a plan, get up your sounds, set up, leave it set up for 4 or 5 days, and record the hell out of the music. I use the benefits of home recording to do overdubs and edits and mixing. I mix at home. I track the way I want it to sound as close as possible. And then I have a big arsenal of digital tools and Pro Tools at home and great monitors. And I can edit and mix and overdub at home. But the meat of what I can get in 4 or 5 days in a studio session, recording live, is amazing. It's my favorite way to make records. It's genre dependent. There's nothing wrong with a musical genius holding up and playing every instrument by himself, layer by layer, and spending all the time he wants until 4 in the morning creating a masterpiece. That's rad. I love working with other people, and I love bringing songwriters with great songs into a world of musicianship that's very electric and creative and spontaneous. I love to record different versions of the same song. You ride the energy waves of everyone and the room that you're in. If a song isn't working, if it's not, switch, go to something else, come back to it later. You know, if the vibe is chill, it's like, hey guys, let's try like a really subtle, mellow version of this rock tune we did in the morning. Be creative. Be creative. So anyway, don't get caught up in the trappings of the lingo, the digital and the analog. Tape is beautiful. Tape is fun. It does have a sound. I hear tape when you hit it hard and it does the tape compression thing. I can hear that. The Slate tape plugin that I use in mixing is pretty damn good. So I focus on performance more than anything. I focus on getting the right performance and the right feel of a song. And I try to do it as quickly as possible and keep it fun, keep the energy up, and create, you know, use the time. Track. You can edit at home on headphones for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours without running up a studio clock. You cannot do simultaneous live recording without a big room and a big console and enough mics and enough pre's to get what you need. There's nothing like having the drum set up, a percussion station set up, the piano mic'd up, the B3, an electric guitar station, an acoustic guitar station, a live vocal scratch in the room, and then a big fancy mic in the ISO booth, so that when you're in those 5 days and someone hears a part, go get it. Boom, go out, we're ready for you, you know. And it just, the pace, it inspires flow. The pace inspires flow, and the one of the engineer's job in that is to keep all of the data organized. And I will be going over ways to organize data. I have a playlist naming method in Pro Tools and a note-taking method that documents, you know, what everyone's thinking in the moment it goes down, so we can go back and reference things. You know, you star really great moments, so they're there waiting for you, because you are amassing a lot of information. And unless you want to go back and listen to it all linearly and take notes on it, you better do it in the moment. So you have to, there's a lot of things you have to do, but it's fun. It's really, 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 really fun. So that's my analog versus digital thing. I hope it makes sense to you. I welcome your questions. Keith Gary, Recording with Intention. Be back soon.